Powerful Content Podcast, your go-to source for content creation, strategy, and business inspiration. I'm your host, Mel Daniels, content strategist, coach and speaker, empowering women across the globe to grow their business with powerful content that connects, nurtures, and converts. So if you're ready to create standout content that gets you noticed and remembered, or build an aligned audience who love you and are ready to buy from you, you're in the right place. I believe that content has the power to connect us all. It's up to you how you use it. Listen in for genuine and insightful chats with guests, as well as practical tools and strategies from me. It's so lovely to have you here. Let's dive into the show. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to episode 50 of the Powerful Content Podcast. Now, today I have with me two very, very special people. I have Anni Payne and Matthew Duchesne from both Milk and Honey Photography and Fancy Boy Photography. So they are so special to me because not only have our lives strangely crisscrossed over the years, mainly through our children, but they were actually the photographers behind both my beautiful family photo session we did back in, I think, about 2016. So that's quite a while ago. And they've also done two of my business shoots as well. So Anni and Matthew have been running their Sydney-based studio of Milk and Honey Photography for over 25 years. Anni began her career with a degree in scientific photography, which I never knew, and founded Milk and Honey Photography, whereas Matthew began his studies with a degree in fine arts and then went on to study film production. Now, both have won a string of international, national, and state awards, and they are mentors, judges, and active members of the Australian Institute of Professional Photography. But once Matthew met Anni, he happily stepped sideways from film into photography to join Anni at Milk and Honey. They have since added a business photography arm to the business called Fancy Boy Photography that isn't so much corporate focused, but really caters to the growing and more fluid photographic needs of small to medium-sized businesses. But truly at the heart of Anni and Matthew's story is one of family's growth while running a business that has also supported their love of photography. Welcome to the podcast, Anni and Matthew.
Thank you so much for
Thanks,
that lovely
Mel.
introduction.
That's beautiful.
Now, my audience will probably recognize some of the photos that you've taken of me. They're dotted throughout my socials. They're on my website, lead magnets, emails, and I've even used it as the cover for this podcast as well. So I just have so much admiration and respect for you both. And I think really at the heart of this respect is exactly what's written in your bio, that you've been able to sustain, well, two businesses now, all whilst having your family in mind. And I think that's super special. And it's something that many of us aimed to do. I know a little bit about your background, and I know that you've both had an interesting journey to get to this point in lives. You're judges, you're mentors, international, national prize winners. You've just got a huge string of accomplishments. But can you share with my audience a little bit about yourselves and perhaps let us know, what is it about the photography industry that you love so much?
Yeah, well, I guess 25 years is such a long time. And when that kind of milestone came up, I was like, oh, we should do the party and should do that. But it wasn't until we sort of really thought about that and started planning that I did realize, wow, that's, such a long time through so many different variations of the business. And we should be really proud of that. And I think that the success of that is that we have evolved over time. It doesn't really feel like 25 years. There's been so many different ways that we've run the business with different amounts of staff and different studios and working from home and working separately and all of that. So it's kept it always interesting and exciting. And that kind of goes for the photography industry itself, which has also changed so much in those 25 years. We started in the days of film and dark rooms, and then having to transition into digital. There's really big industrial change in there. So yeah, that's also what we love about it. That's got so much change and interest. So it keeps it interesting along the way.
Let's just talk about this for a moment if we can. And because I think that, a lot of small businesses really did struggle through that COVID period. And I can only imagine being a photographer and what it was like through those periods where you weren't able to meet your clients face to face and take these beautiful photos that you usually do. Now, I know some of the things that you did, but I would love for you to kind of talk about perhaps some of the things that you were able to do through that period, those few years where, meeting face to face was so difficult, what you did in order to continue your business running.
Yeah, that was really a big spanner thrown in the works for everybody. And yeah, it was an interesting time. It was actually also a really nice kind of pause to re-look at where everything was at and perhaps get to a couple of those projects that would never have happened otherwise, and that we, always thought we'd get around to, but probably would never have got around to without given that sort of an opportunity. So yeah, three of the things that we did that I think that happened just purely because of COVID. One of them was we did the From the Street documentary photography, where we photographed some families at the front of their houses. And we did that as a community project to document that time in people's lives and to give those photos to them. And we also applied for grants through council and things like that to perhaps have an exhibition or something out of that. But it was just really nice to do a very different project in that way. And another thing that we did was to create an online course with our teenage daughter, teaching teenagers how to use their phones for photography and thinking about lighting and composition and something like that. And the online course was something that I've always wanted to develop, and it was really great to be able to just learn all the structure behind doing that and to do that, something different. And the other project that I felt satisfied in being able to get to in that time was to go through all the old archives digitally and all the old negatives and photos and just really be able to archive our personal work and client work as well. So yeah, it was a good reset for all of those kind of projects.
And one of the major thing that came out of it was that we were in being sort of forced to really seriously consider the finances and where the business stood and how we were going to survive. We reconsidered the studio that we were in at the time, which we were renting. And then the silver lining was that we actually realized that we could not only we could possibly buy a commercial premises based on our super fund. So in a strange way, it led to something that was far more secure for us long term, and was a really exciting sort of transition into a new phase for the business.
I love that so much. I think that we can all learn from that out of diversity comes so much opportunity. And, the fact that you said it was a nice pause, I think that that's beautiful, because we are in this situation of doing, and, forever rushing from one thing to the other. To be forced to do something and stop, whilst it wasn't great, the reason why we had to, it also meant that so many of us had that opportunity to reassess where we were in our lives, in our business, and really come to something new and different, which is so beautiful. Now, you mentioned that you've been running Milk and Honey. I think is it 27 years now? You recently had a 25th birthday, but I think it's more than that. What do you think is the secret to longevity in business? I think so many of my listeners are very much in that early stage of their business. So, thinking about being in business for 27 years is kind of mind-blowing. So what do you think has been the secret to that?
Yeah, I think just keeping interested in the business and loving the business and not getting stuck in doing the same thing. And sometimes I feel like that's a negative, where it's we're always going in different directions. But I think then looking back for that amount of time, it's actually a really big positive to have just kept it evolving and having different locations and having different types of photography that we concentrate on, and that kind of thing has really kept the longevity of the business.
Also, as a team effort, when I first started with Annie, she had already set up Milk and Honey with her business partner. At the time, we were working with stringers, with other photographers as well, sort of coming and going from the studio. Apart from just wanting to pay the rent, we all shared a love for photography, and I think what it really taught me very quickly was there was a great benefit of working in teams, because you bounce off each other, you bounce off ideas and things. And one of the biggest struggles, I think, of running your own business is being isolated in some sense, and it's very hard sometimes to sort of keep motivated. Whereas if you're in touch and communicating with other people in the community with similar passions, and I guess Annie and I are very lucky as a couple that we also share this sort of very similar passion and taste in the work, that it's never been just a business. It's actually a real pursuit for us that's deeply satisfying on a number of different levels.
Yeah, I think you just touched on something really important there as well, Matthew, and that's the importance of community and surrounding yourself with like-minded people, because many of my listeners are solopreneurs, or they have, a very, very small team. And so it can feel lonely and it can feel isolated. And especially if you're not sure which direction that you want to go in your business, just having someone to be able to bounce ideas off, or to be able to perhaps cheerlead each other's successes, drown your sorrows if you need to, is really, really important. So yeah, community is definitely a key to the way I run my business as well. So let's just switch gears for a second and let's talk about professional photography. That's why we're here today, and connecting with our ideal clients through professional photography. As small business owners, why do you think we need professional photography?
I think it's important as a perception, no matter how small your business is, to have people get that you take yourself as seriously as you want them to take you. And professional photography sets you apart in that regard. We're in this wonderful sort of cultural age now where everyone has a camera of some sort, and I do think that's fantastic. The democratizing of the technology has actually opened up all sorts of creative opportunities. Nonetheless, it still means that people as professionals can set themselves apart by producing really special images, by understanding a very particular situation. In our case, I think when we listen to our clients and when we can actually get them to tell their story, we in turn can interpret that into images that will be of value to them. And that's very different to using, say, a library shot or taking a selfie on a phone and thinking that'll do. It's about giving yourself, your business, I think, the seriousness that you want others to take it with.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And I know from personal experience as well, my first photo shoot with you, I was extremely nervous, but I knew at the same time that taking that step to invest in myself and my business and have these photos taken that I could use absolutely everywhere. And that's, just, I think probably another reason, which you might talk about as well, the fact that you can use them in so many different places. Like I'm constantly using them on my socials. I use them in my emails as headers, as, just so many different things in so many different ways, that it's such a great investment in your business. And it kind of signals to yourself, like you said, that you are serious. You're in business for a reason. Yeah. And, this is a way to show the world that that's the case.
And I think there's the great value of photography is it's a very visible investment for your business. It's something like you're sort of saying, Mel, that if you communicate well with the photographer and they understand exactly what it is that you're trying to communicate to you, especially to your ideal client, then there's lots of shelf life to be had out of that session. And it's really worth investing, once you understand that you're on the same page, it's really worth investing a lot of time in just preparing for the session itself. And I remember your first session. It was fantastic. We had a pile of clothes, sort of that we were dragging from spot to spot, saying, oh, this looks great. That, the light's fantastic over there. Why don't we try this? It was a really vibrant kind of creative opportunity to establish a foundation, I think, visually, for what you were setting out to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was definitely an experience and one I thoroughly enjoyed. I obviously went back for a second go, but besides showing your ideal client or showing your audience that you mean business, you are in business and you mean business, how else can professional photography help us?
I think it relays a very clear message, or it can relay a very clear message that is a shorthand, basically. When we meet people, when we see images in the media and all the rest, it can be as little as 5 seconds, and you've registered what or how you feel about it and what the message might be. And certainly now with social media, all that sort of stuff, we're sort of content saturated in a way. So it's really important to not to grab someone's attention in a superficial way, but to hopefully relate to the people who are going to engage with you on a serious level.
Yeah, I love that point. I love that point about relating to your ideal client, because if we're not going to relate, if we can't relate to our ideal client, they're never, ever going to come on that client journey with us, and they're never, ever going to purchase with us. They need to get over that first hurdle of connecting with us. And if we can show them through, visual stories, exactly who we are and how they can relate to us, then that's really going to help that process.
Yeah, I think if what I often try to draw from our clients when preparing for the session, as well as during the session itself, is some sense of the passion that has drawn them into the business in the first place. If I can get them to or relay to me through the camera just what it is that made them start their business in the first place, invariably they've got this sort of this excitement come through, the passion comes through, and then that of course will relate then to be relayed to their potential clients. It's so interesting and it's so simple to me, but I love hearing those stories because it helps me as well, apart from just being interesting.
So besides the perception side of things, being taken seriously and standing out from the crowd, is there any other reasons why we should think or consider professional photography as part of our budget this year?
Yeah, I think because it reiterates the message. Graphically, you can utilize it. You were saying yourself, Mel, how many different ways you can apply the images through different facets of the business. Preparing for a session and gaining a clear idea of how those images can be used, you end up with a very useful suite of pictures that may, for example, sort of be strongest. A portrait might be great for LinkedIn, but they're not so appropriate for social media. You may want something that's a bit more loose, a bit more fun, a bit more dynamic. Similarly, something for a website page on the about us kind of section may require a bit more sort of eye contact and direct authenticity, whereas something that's more about the process of the business will tell the story of the business. And engage on a different level in a different way. So similarly, if the photograph, depending on the framing, the composition, that sort of thing, if we've left, for example, some space to one side, graphics can be dropped in.
Yeah.
The text, will complement the image. The background will be consistent, so there's a connection there. It helps graphic designers if you have the luxury of working with graphic designers or web designers. Even when you're working on templates, it just it makes sense to have that versatility and that strength, that I think, we as professionals bring to it.
Oh, absolutely. And I would have to agree, the versatility is a huge, huge plus when you're thinking about investing in professional photography, because there are so many different ways that you can use exactly the same image as well. Like, I just feel like my 2 photo shoots have produced content for years, which they have. Like, it's just amazing the different ways that I can use them and reuse them and change, add text to them, or like you said, just change something a little bit different. And, I've got a whole new look, but it's still in that same kind of branding suite, which is awesome. Now, I'm just going to take a little bit of a tangent for a section, because you kind of mentioned around preparing for a photo shoot. And I think that this is something really almost a bit scary for a lot of people. I know it was for me when I first did my first photo shoot. And, it's often quite a big investment compared to what they've probably previously invested in their business and themselves as well. So once you actually have made that decision that, yes, you want to do a photo shoot, how can we ensure that we do get this versatility and true reflection of our brand, and it does stand out from the crowd. What are some of the things that we should think about to help us get the most out of that photo shoot?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to think about is how you want to present to your clients. So it isn't just about the photographer taking a photo of you and that's it. You want to think a bit more about it, about like how you want to present. Do you want to come across as being very corporate and slick, or do you want to come across as being very approachable and casual, or do you want a bit of both of those kind of feels? Or if it's products, do you want them to be bright and white and pretty and light, or do you want them to be moody and warm and luxurious? So there are a lot of things that you can think about, which you've probably already thought about as part of your branding. Mm-hmm. And then the photography can carry through and bring that to life as well.
I know that when I first did my photo shoot that I had no idea. Like I really had no idea. And I think that's part of your magic, Anni and Matthew, to be able to bring people's like lack of ideas into a true reflection of who they want to be and what they want to stand for, which is absolutely amazing. I know that not everyone has the beautiful magic that the both of you two do. So how can someone perhaps prepare themselves, besides just looking at the look of things, besides deciding whether it's crisp and clean or moody and warm, what other things can they really be sure of to get the most out of their photo shoot?
A lot of it comes down to understanding what it is that you do in your own business.
Big question.
Well, it is. And I think I found a lot of clients, whether it be by having a good solid conversation on the phone beforehand or them filling out a brief, for them, it's actually a really healthy exercise to just try to distill what it is that they are intending to do with their business. And so for our involvement, what it is they're intending the photos to do for them, how they're going to get that value out of them. And in preparing, it's not just, I don't think it's just the aesthetics. In many respects, that's sort of our job, is to interpret the aesthetic approach that's going to best suit the business. Is more how you want people to feel with regard to your business and to you. How do you relate your authenticity, your genuine passion for what you're doing? And as Annie was saying, sometimes that's as simple as a backdrop. Sometimes it's a lot more work. A lot of people are very nervous in front of the camera. Having said that, it's a really fun process, and again, this is why I like to get to know people, because, as I say, people get so much more confident when they are talking about what they know. And that's the sense that I would like to get out of a portrait, for example, in relation to your business. And once someone is on a roll like that, their confidence translates through the camera, and that confidence translates into money, basically, in the end result, because people are happy to approach you. If you look like a deer in the headlights, then people are going to think something's wrong.
And I think that's also going back to why you would have a professional photographer. Yeah. So it's not just about the look, it's about these skills that we have when talking to people, and then their facial expressions are changing. So we're doing that on purpose to kind of get them into that level of not feeling like they're being photographed and forgetting about that. And that's the same reason why we take children, to run in the park. So they're not there sitting stiffly for their photos. They're actually just being themselves, and then you can really get some genuine photos of them. So that's all part of the skills of a professional photographer, and the different levels that we take it to get those really good photos.
And many of our clients are in a transitional phase. They've stepped away from one job that was probably paying more money, but they're following their passion. They're interestingly, I find over the last, say, 5 years, for Fancy Boy, the majority of the clients are women, and professional women, so usually sort of 30-ish plus, who have stepped away from quite often a more sort of corporate, restrained sort of work environment, largely for work-life balance and requirements, or simply because that's their preference, often for ethical reasons that basically take them into a more fluid sort of business environment. And in that regard, they're probably not feeling that at their most confident. So part of the job as I see it, is to sort of find what it is that's giving them the strength in the first place to take that step. And it's a very interesting process, I think. And I also find interesting as a male that in general, I'd say women are much more visually literate. They understand what they're going for. They understand what they relate to visually.
Yeah, really interesting. I'm going to pick up on a couple of points there, Matthew, if I can. I love how you talk about getting to know your ideal clients, so the people who you're photographing, and help them to create photography or images that are true reflections of who they are or who they want to be. I think that that's really beautiful, and I think that that's a really important part of having professional photography, is really bringing out that confidence and showcasing exactly who you are, so your ideal client can actually connect with you. And then the other thing you mentioned, and I think maybe Annie mentioned this, was how you want people to feel. So using professional photography to really connect into not only how you want your ideal client to feel when they see your face and when they see images of you, but how you want to feel about showing up in that particular way. So I think that they're both beautiful reasons to have professional photography as well. Now, I know that you've also got a resource that can help people if they are thinking about having professional photography. So do you want to just talk about that for a second?
Yeah, we developed a questionnaire that helps you put together your own photo brief. And because we realized, with seeing so many people with businesses and the type of questions that come up, and it's very helpful, even if you're not having a photo shoot, it's really helpful to learn those things about your business. And then if you are having a photo shoot, then you've got this great kind of prepared brief, which will mean that you'll get the most out of any photography session as well. The photo brief has questions about who you are as a business or as a service provider, and then or what products you sell. And then it's also got like, how do you want to present to your clients and that kind of thing. And then the goals and deliverables that you might need or expect as a result of the photo session. And then also, who is your target audience and who are you directing them at, which helps us and helps you as well. And then we also suggest that people put together like a mood board or inspirational photos, reference photos that they've seen that really resonate with them. And then they can, we can use that collaboratively to come up with some images that have a similar feel for them.
I love it. I love it so much. And I think it's so important that we actually think about these things, not just before a professional photo shoot, but in general as well, right? Like, we really should understand how we want to show up, how we want to be visible for our ideal client, and how we want to actually connect with them. So all of those things will really, really help you do that, as well as help you prepare for your photo shoot as well. I love it so much. I'll make sure that I pop the link to that in the show notes, so anyone who's listening can go and grab a copy of that. I know it will be super helpful whether you're planning a photo shoot or not, so make sure you go and grab that. Now, before we wrap up today, I've got a couple of other quick questions for you. I'm going to fire away. The two of you have been together for a while, but I want to know what it's like to work with your life partner every day. So how do you actually, do business without killing each other?
Oh, it's just bliss, man.
Easy.
Yeah. Annie adores me and I adore her, and it just can't be together enough, really. Yeah.
No, a lot of people ask us that, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you're crazy. I could never do that." And I think that it's a matter of again, evolving, like the business itself, like over the years, finding areas that we're interested in, and it's actually really great, having a partnership of any sort in business, I think, where you can do that, where you can find your strengths and really focus on those, and then the other person can have a different avenue. So it's really about finding the areas that we are not only good at, but that we also love, and then making that work as a team. So yeah.
And I think it was interesting. I had a session yesterday with a team who were just starting their own business, and they happened to be first cousins. And so we're talking about just this sort of thing of the benefits, because I think the old school sort of approach would be, well, you don't do business with friends and family, it gets too complicated. in their case, they nailed it straight away. They said, look, we know each other almost as sisters. It's about trust. And if you trust each other, you can communicate clearly. And if you can communicate clearly, then it's a shorthand to move on. You know, I think for Anni and I, that's a very similar situation. You know, we know each other well enough to trust that if we are saying something that can be brutally honest, then okay, you sort of roll with that, but you understand it's coming from a good place. And it's it's certainly taken a while. And I think the other thing is just recognizing each other's skills. Annie's a great photographer and taught me everything technically, probably, that I know in the nitty-gritty of dealing with cameras. But at the end of the day, she's by far better at the business side of things. I'm not. I fully admit that. I hate the business side of things, you know, or at least, you know, I avoid it if I can. So, and we can always back each other up. That's the other great thing, you know, I think in terms of our skill sets and all the rest, we're not so sort of different that we can't sort of cover each other's backs.
Also, just on a more kind of personal domestic note on that as well, I mean, I think a lot of people go into business to be able to have flexibility in their lives, and maybe a lot more women for that reason as well, when they've got children and they can be flexible around that. And the beauty of us both being in the same business means that we have both been able to have that, which unfortunately doesn't happen enough for men, I think, in the still very, you know, kind of corporate social world. So, you know, we have equally been able to be there for our children from the beginning. Matthew does 100% of the cooking still, and you know, all of that kind of thing. So it crosses over into our personal lives as well, which is really great.
That's beautiful. Such beautiful advice, I think, for personal as well as business as well. So to trust each other, to communicate, to work with your strengths, and to really lean into that teamwork side of things. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Do you have any final parting words of wisdom for us?
We would like to say that, you know, don't overthink it too much. Don't be afraid to start thinking about your photo shoot and how you would, you know, like to show off yourself to the world. And feel free to chat to us, give us a call and chat about, you know, some advice about where to start with all of that.
I think, like most things with any change, it has to start with a conversation. And we always enjoy that conversation. You know, it usually leads to very productive, positive places. And I think, you know, so many people starting out in business have sort of, there's an insecurity, obviously there's an insecurity. But when you're speaking to other professionals who've got experience in their particular fields, and you just stand to learn. And that builds confidence. And
I would have to reiterate those words of wisdom. I would have to just 100% reiterate to don't be scared, to just give it a go, because the benefits and the outcome from it is just beyond your wildest imagination. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Anni and Matthew, and sharing your wisdom with my listeners. I truly appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mel. Very much.
Thanks so much for listening. That's it for another week. To get more powerful content in your life, make sure you're following along on socials. My handle is @meldbusiness. And just in case you're wondering, the groovy music for this podcast was created by Just Here on SoundCloud. I'd also be super grateful if you took a moment to rate and review this podcast so more amazing women like you can experience the power of content. And if you're like, hell Mel, stop talking, I'm ready to work with you now, here's how we can work some powerful content magic together. Firstly, come and join the Content Effect, my membership inspiring women with service-based businesses to ditch the content chaos and start creating stand-out content that gets you noticed and makes sales. You can join us by using the link in the show notes or just Google the Content Effect. The second way we can work together is via my one-on-one packages. We can create a sustainable content strategy or start to build out your client journey. It's up to you. Hop on over to meldbusinessservices.com.au/services to find out more. Until next time, have a beautiful week and embrace the power of your content.